Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF. General, thank you so much for joining us today.
A pleasure.
It's been at least more than a week, I think, since you've joined us on the briefing. So please, what can you share with us about updates in this war?
Okay, before I start, just for everybody to know that we spent the last 10 days in the US participating in the parade. We had our own float. It was amazing to see how many people recognized us in the streets of New York while we were marching there. And the vibes were unbelievable, really. It's people, I think, are really awakened. I see the Jewish people, Israelis who live in the US. So now we participated in the Sheva conference and we were honored there. And also we did a joint gala with the Jerusalem Post. And the next day we participated in the Jerusalem Post conference. And around that, many meetings, many events. It was a very, very busy week, still recovering from jet lag. But we came back to Israel and really a lot going on. So basically, there was a lot of really excitement and happiness, of course, in Israel and around the Jewish world with the amazing operation to rescue our 4 hostages. This operation was planned for a while, for weeks. Israel had very good intelligence, and I must say that the ability to get accurate intelligence in this case is very, very dependent on the fact that we are on the ground inside Gaza, close to where the hostages were. This is the way you can connect to human intelligence, to people. You cannot know that a hostage is in a specific house, in a specific room, and so on, if you don't have somebody telling you that. So Israel enjoyed very good intelligence. But having intelligence is not enough. We have a lot of intelligence about hostages, about locations. But there's one thing to have intelligence, and it's a completely different thing to have operational capability to carry out an operation. And to have operational capability to carry out an operation that also has a lot of chances for success really depends on being on the ground. I mean, one of the amazing things that we saw in this operation is not just the ability of the Yamam or the Shin Bet to get inside Nuseirat in the middle of the day, disguised, and storm the 2 houses where the hostages were. This is one thing. The other thing that is pretty amazing is that minutes later, the tanks and the APCs arrived to the force and defended them and enabled them to get out while there was a fierce fight there. And this shows what level of freedom of operation and control the IDF is enjoying inside Gaza. This is what we need to learn from this event. I mean, before that, to move 100 meters, we need a whole division that would fight for the whole day, fierce fighting to just move 100 meters. And now we are really able to maneuver easily. I'm not saying anything, by the way, that wasn't published. Don't reveal secrets in Zooms. So freedom of operation is crucial. And it's important to remember, and I talk about it a lot when we talk about hostages, the overall strategy of Hamas is not to release hostages. It's no matter how much we talk to them, they're not going to release hostages for a very simple reason. What they want is to keep the hostages and create pressure inside Israel in order to bring the Israeli society and politics to elections. They believe that if we go to elections, then this war will stop. This is the whole strategy. international pressure and pushing Israel towards elections. Now, they believe that if they keep the hostages and still are able to accuse the Israeli government for not trying hard enough to release them, they'll get demonstrations, and they get society upset and the political system, and it's actually working for them. I mean, the fact that Benny Gantz and his party left the government, this tells Hamas our strategy is working. We should not release hostages because the pressure is working. Now, think what will happen if they do release hostages. Let's say there is a deal that now a month and a half we do a ceasefire and we get 33 hostages, which is pretty much maybe 70% of the hostages that are alive. And this will take a month and a half. Obviously, in this scenario, the pressure on the government will go down. Everybody will be happy. We're getting hostages, especially the women and the children and elderly and sick people. So what are the chances in this scenario that Israel will go to elections? They are very low. How does it serve Hamas? It doesn't serve Hamas. So they're not going to release hostages. We need to understand that. And therefore, the only way to release our hostages is military. We have to go in, put military pressure, destroy Hamas, try to get to their leadership. And as we are doing so, find the operational opportunities to release hostages. Now, we have to remember, unfortunately, that we have many hostages who are not alive. And we have to recover the bodies. And this is a different kind of challenge, because doing an operation to rescue live hostages and try to make sure that they stay alive is one thing. Going in an operation that you know that the hostage is not alive, and therefore the seconds you go into the house or things like that are less important, because the hostage is not alive. So we can do a lot of this kind of operations. We can bring many hostages back. And even talking about a deal, the only way to bring about a deal is threatening the lives of the leadership of Hamas. The moment they will be threatened existentially, this is the moment, for the first time, they'll have to take a serious decision. Do they want to leave? Do they want to cut a deal? Do they want to give us the hostages and get a corridor out from Gaza to the Sinai Peninsula and possibly to Iran or Qatar? Or it's to fight until the end? We don't know. We don't control this. And this is something very important to understand. For 30 years, we keep blaming ourselves on things that don't depend on us. Okay, we have to stop blaming ourselves. We are not the Nazis that did what they did on the 7th of October. We are not the ones holding the hostages. We are not the ones who are not willing to release them. This is Hamas. And we're not controlling this. It's not about Israeli decision. And the kind of the decision they want, we cannot give them. They want to survive and still control Gaza. This is not an option. It's not an option. They need to be destroyed. We cannot live with Hamas in Gaza. Not Hamas, not Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and not any entity that wants to destroy Israel. We cannot endanger our whole society. We cannot do that. So this we cannot give them. And we have to understand what we can do and what we cannot do. I think that the decision of Benny Gantz to leave the cabinet is devastating. It's really bad for many reasons. One, it's because our soldiers are fighting, risking their lives. The minimum we can do is be united as a society and as politicians to support them. What's the message we're conveying to our soldiers? That what they're doing is not important enough for politicians to stop doing politics and unite in order to win decisively this war? What kind of message is this? The minimum we can do for our soldiers is be unite and strengthen them and do what it needs to be done to win. The other thing that is devastating to me in this decision, it's endangering the hostages, because basically it's conveying a message to Hamas. Our strategy is actually working. We are not releasing hostages, and the Israeli system is doing exactly what we expected. It's pushing towards elections, which we want. So seriously, are we going to push forward Hamas strategy? This is what our politicians are doing, playing to the hands of Hamas. They want elections. They're talking about it in the open all the time. In every message they send, they say to the Israeli society and politicians, go to elections. Why? Because they know that this will bring a win for them. Now, I want to make it crystal clear. IDSF, we're not political. I don't care at all about any politician. And I truly believe that when this war ends, and after we are going to really go in depth of what happened, they all need to go, all of them. All this political system is done. Israel will need new leadership, but not during war, not in times of war. In war, we need to stay united. And this war might be very, very long. And so I think that, one day we were all really so excited. It's amazing what the IDF and the Yamam and the Shin Bet are able to do. It's really unbelievable. And unfortunately, we lost an amazing commander, Arnon, in this operation of the Yamam. True hero. And the next day, you see this little politics, which frankly make no sense. Couldn't understand one reason why this is happening that we can really relate to. But let's talk for a moment after sharing my, my feelings about all of this, about what's really going on the ground. On the ground, the IDF is assuming that in a few weeks, Hamas as a military entity is going to be destroyed. We have at the moment the Division 162 in Rafah really moving forward. They took control of all of Philadelphia corridor. They're controlling the Egyptian border. We saw this weekend our tanks on the shore of Gaza. The fact that we control the area doesn't mean that we found all the tunnels and destroyed them. This is, I'm a combat engineer. This is my profession. And I can tell you it takes time. It takes time to find all the tunnels, drill inside and destroy them. It will take probably a few weeks, maybe more. But we're controlling the border. As we are doing so, Division 162 is conquering Rafah step by step, moving forward, and doing a very, very good job. A lot of munitions, many terrorists killed, launchers, rocket launchers, and so on, that they're finding. I really, really hope, as we were told, that they saved hostages, that at a certain point, of course, will save more, but also I'm waiting for the day that the IDF will say, we found Sinwar and death, we killed them, we destroyed the leadership of Hamas. Eventually it will happen. If they didn't escape through a tunnel to Egypt, there will be a moment when we reach the leadership and destroy them, and this will be a very important moment. As Division 162 is destroying the Rafah Brigade, and we took control of the Egyptian border, we're moving forward. Division 98 of the paratroopers are storming the central camps, the western part of central camps, which we didn't go into until now. Part of it is because of the hostages, and they're going into Dir el-Balach, El-Burej, Nuseirat, destroying the remaining forces of Hamas. So I think in the coming weeks, Hamas as a military entity will be destroyed. When I say Hamas as a military entity will be destroyed, I don't mean to say zero terrorists or zero infrastructure. I mean to say, as an organization, as a terror army, they won't exist. No brigades, no battalions, no companies, no squads. And already now, when we're fighting, even when we're fighting in Rafah, we don't see them confronting us organized. We see cells, see small groups trying to challenge us, and this already shows that Hamas as a military entity is fading. Now, we destroyed all their production capability, and most of these factories were situated in the central camps. All of them were destroyed. We closed the oxygen of Hamas when we closed the Egyptian border, and this means Hamas cannot rebuild itself. They cannot get weapons, they cannot get munition. Every day that passes, they will have less and less and less. And this is where it's going. At the same time, the Israeli industries are growing exponentially, growing and producing more and more and more munitions. And of course, we have also the big assistance we're getting from the US, $14 billion in munitions and things that are flowing into Israel. And this is very, very dramatic. So we are getting stronger and stronger, and they are getting weaker and weaker. And this is what's going on in Gaza. Now, at a certain point, there will be a point in a month and a half, that the army will say to the government, we finished our main missions in Gaza. Yes, there is still, cleaning up to do, which will take a long time. We leave maybe one division, a part of the Gaza division, maybe one division with, let's say, a brigade on each area, south, center, and north of Gaza. So if now we have something like 10 brigades operating in Gaza, we'll have maybe 2, 3 in a month or a month and a half, and then we'll see the whole army moving north. And that will be the moment the state of Israel needs to decide, are we going to war with Hezbollah, or do we have another solution? I would assume, I don't see any diplomatic solution for the north, certainly not with the way the international community is dealing at the moment with Hezbollah, and therefore there is a big chance that we're going to a full-scale war in Lebanon. I assume that this war is not going to be long. It's not going to look like Gaza at all. Why? Because it's going to be very, very intensive. They will shoot Tel Aviv, Haifa, places like that. We're going to destroy Beirut. But because this is going to be very intensive, both sides will want to shorten this event a lot. And therefore, once we take control of all of South Lebanon, and we can bring back our citizens to a secure environment, some kind of ceasefire will come to be, and there will be a ceasefire. Unlike Hamas, where we can completely destroy Hamas, completely. In Lebanon, it's not the same, because Hezbollah can retreat and retreat and retreat. They can even retreat into Syria. How far away is the IDF going to maneuver? So we cannot really destroy Hezbollah. We can take over South Lebanon. We can inflict a lot of damage to Hezbollah, but we cannot destroy them because they can retreat. And we're not going probably to conquer Beirut like we did in the first Lebanese war. So this is how things look at the moment. I think that we're also keeping our eyes open to what's happening in Judea and Samaria. There are terrorist groups there that see that Hamas is about to be destroyed, and they are saying to themselves, maybe this is our time to conduct an attack on Israeli cities in the center of Israel. So the central command needs to be very, very alert about what's going on along Road 6 and the center of Israel. it's also something that worries us. I want to say a word about the elections in Europe. Tomorrow I'm flying to Italy with one of our generals from the Mossad. We have many meetings in the G7, the Italian parliament. We're very connected to what's going on in Europe. Europe is changing dramatically. The political system of Europe is changing. Many of the countries, the right, which are very supportive of Israel, have won. See this in France, in Belgium, in Germany, in Austria, in Spain. And by the way, the sentiment of the people in Europe, we saw it in the Eurovision. It was amazing to see that while the judges gave the Israeli song 0, the public of Europe gave it 12. And this brought the Israeli song to at the end of the contest to number 5. Now, if it was judged upon the public in Europe, it would have been number 1, by far, by the way. So this is the sentiment in the streets of Europe. They see Hamas, they see what's going on in their own countries, they understand that this is coming to them, and they want a decisive win. They want Israel to win against this evil. And they also want to stop the endless amount of immigration into Europe and the takeover that Muslims, a lot of radical Muslims are doing there. And Europe is changing. And this is going to impact a lot politics. And this is going to help us a lot because we need Europe to support us in this war. European Union is changing dramatically for good, for better for Israel. And I believe that this sentiment in the Western society of Europe exists also in the US. And also most of the Americans are supportive of Israel. So we are all very worried as the war is moving forward about international support. Well, I think there's good news. International support will shift and is shifting towards Israel. And it will shift even more if we win decisively. People like winners. And we need to be winners. We see how people react to the amazing operation we did in Nuseirat and the release of the hostages. This is Israel at its best. And this needs to continue. This is our real DNA, and this is what the world needs to see. And the more they see it, the more supportive they will be of what we are doing. Moshe.
General, thank you for that very thorough update. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters tuning in and sending in questions. We don't have much time left, so let's get to a few important questions. General, a lot of people are wondering, you spoke about Benny Gantz leaving the war cabinet and its broader impacts on unity and playing into Hamas's agenda, but what are the short-term implications to the war cabinet or how the war will be conducted in Gaza? Will there be any actual changes that we will feel?
We'll have to see. I mean, the government on paper is stable. It's 64 mandates. If they will stay united and focused, the government will be stable, and probably in the short term, the prime minister will bring into the cabinet new ministers. I must say that when Benny Gantz was in the cabinet, they created like a small cabinet with Netanyahu, Gallant, and Gantz. Now it's not needed. So decision-making can be done in the formal cabinet according to the law, which is a much larger cabinet. So you have other voices. The challenge is that as long as Gantz was there and also Eisenkot, when everybody united around a decision, let's say around the decision to go into Rafah, nobody could say in the world, this is an extreme government, this is why they're doing that. No, because Gantz was there And this unity help us deal with international pressure. But when Gantz is not there, and if Netanyahu doesn't manage to bring more parties into the cabinet, then there might be an atmosphere saying, every decision that is made, this is because it's Ben-Gvir or Smotrich or whatever, and they try to portray it like these are extremists that are taking the decision. Having said that, I just talked about the elections in Europe. So now things are changing. So on one hand, Gantz is leaving, this is a problem. On the other hand, the world is changing, and this is good. So maybe this pressure won't be as big as we think, and maybe on the contrary, we'll see the European Union presenting a completely different approach, maybe defending us also against Hague, mainly also bringing a different approach, talking about the administration. So it will be, I think, fascinating to see the dynamics and see where this is going. We have a big job to do, and the big job is to send the message of unity to the people of Israel. We are going to launch a very, very big campaign, huge, in Israel, talking about unity, talking about victory, talking about the need to focus on the goals of war, to destroy Hamas, to bring all the hostages, to create a reality where there won't be again a terror army in Gaza. And of course, we need to look at the north as well. So we need to empower our society and army and do what is needed to do, win.
General, final question. We just have a few minutes left. There's discussion about the U.S. directly negotiating with Hamas for the release of its 5 U.S. citizens, excluding Israel from those negotiations. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that from the Israeli point of view, we wanna look at all the hostages as one group. But we saw the Thailand managing to get all their hostages. I think any hostage you can release, it's great. But I think the message for the hostages who are not American is not good, because I would expect a power like America to be able to really push for the release of all the hostages. And it's not going to work with appeasement. And it's not going to work by telling Hamas that they are going to survive. It's going to work by the US saying to Israel, go and destroy them. Destroy them. We'll give you everything you need. Munitions, we'll defend you in the UN. Go and destroy Hamas. And when Hamas will hear this message, they will beg for a deal. But this is not the message they are hearing.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for joining this briefing. Thank you to all of our supporters and viewers for tuning in. This week is, of course, a holiday for the Jewish people, Shavuot. So we will not be having our regularly scheduled briefings the remainder of the week. However, we will be sending out some great content through our emails. So this is a reminder, if you're not receiving our emails, please sign up so you receive what we're able to send out. Wishing everyone a Chag Sameach. And until next week, when we resume our briefing, stay strong, stay safe, take care, everyone.